In the vibrant city of Paris, Élise and Jacques form an enviable couple in the eyes of all. Friends since childhood, they got married and built what appeared to be a perfect life. At the same time, Margaux and Henri, the couple's close friends, share an equally stable relationship. However, beneath the surface of appearances, hidden desires and silent betrayals are testing the limits of trust and loyalty. Élise, a talented visual artist, begins to feel a void in her marriage with Jacques, a renowned lawyer. The shine and passion that once defined their relationship have started to fade over time. Jacques was always busy with his important cases, buried in piles of documents and endless meetings. The attention he once dedicated to his wife was now channeled into his office, leaving little room for romance. Margaux, Élise's best friend, was a successful writer and often shared confidences with her. The two would regularly meet in charming Parisian cafes, where they would share a cappuccino and words of comfort. One day, during one of these conversations, Élise confided, "Margaux, sometimes I feel like I married Jacques work, not him." Margaux, always understanding, held her friend's hand and said, "I understand, Élise. Keeping a marriage alive requires effort from both. Have you tried talking to him about it?" "I've tried, but it seems he always has something more important to do," sighed Élise, looking at the cooling coffee in her cup. Meanwhile, Henri, Margaux's husband, was a charming and extroverted businessman. One day, while visiting an art gallery for a corporate event, he came across Élise, who was organizing an exhibition of her new works. Their eyes met, and in that moment, an undeniable spark arose between them. "Élise, it's a pleasure to see you here. Your works are truly impressive," commented Henri, with an enchanting smile. "Oh, Henri, thank you. I didn't expect to find you here," replied Élise, visibly surprised. From that chance encounter, Élise and Henri began to see each other more frequently. Initially, it was just conversations about art and business, but the connection between them deepened with each meeting. On one of these occasions, after long conversations and exchanges of glances, Henri could not help but express his feelings. "Élise, there is something about you that attracts me in an inexplicable way," said Henri, looking directly into her eyes. Élise, feeling the same, hesitated for a moment before confessing, "Henri, I have feelings for you too, but we can't. We're both married and friends with our spouses," Élise said. "I know, Élise, but I can no longer ignore what I'm feeling," Henri replied, moving closer to her. Meanwhile, Jacques began to notice the growing distance between him and his wife. He missed the conversations and intimate moments they used to share. Seeking comfort, Jacques started to get increasingly close to Margaux. At first, it was just discussions about the challenges of everyday life, but soon they were having intimate dinners and prolonged conversations. "Margaux, I think I'm losing Élise," Jacques confessed, as they shared a glass of wine. "Jacques, sometimes people drift apart without realizing it. Maybe you need to show her how much you still care," Margaux suggested, trying to hide her own growing feelings for him. "You're right, Margaux, but what if it's too late?" Jacques asked, a concerned look on his face. "It's never too late to try, Jacques," Margaux replied, placing her hand on his. As Élise and Henri became more involved, Jacques and Margaux found solace and understanding in each other. The beginning of the affair was marked, with each step towards the unknown testing the limits of trust and loyalty among the four friends. Paris, the city of love, now harbored secrets that could forever shake their seemingly perfect lives. As the encounters between Élise and Henri became more frequent, the secret between them began to take root. Henri, a charming and engaging man, became a regular visitor to Élise's studio. There, amid the brushes and canvases, their passion blossomed, far from the curious eyes of Paris. The artistic environment provided the perfect refuge for their illicit romance. "You know this is risky, Élise," Henri whispered as he gently caressed her face. "I know, Henri, but I can't help it. When I'm with you, I feel alive in a way I haven't for a long time," Élise replied, her eyes shining with a mix of excitement and fear. Meanwhile, Jacques, increasingly absent from home due to the demands of his important cases, found comfort in Margaux's arms. They developed a deep emotional connection, sharing intimate dinners and prolonged conversations on the nights when Élise was busy with her exhibitions. "Margaux, you've always been a good friend. I don't know what I'd do without you," Jacques said, as they clinked their wine glasses. "Jacques, you know you can always count on me. True friends are there for each other in the toughest of times," Margaux responded, trying to hide the guilt that was beginning to gnaw at her. The plan for a weekend trip planned by both couples promised to be an opportunity for relaxation and fun. However, this trip turned out to be a real minefield of emotions and distrust. Moments of jealousy began to emerge, and the tensions between the couples became palpable. During a walk in the countryside, Henri and Élise moved away from the others to admire the landscape. "I feel like we're being watched all the time," Élise commented, looking around anxiously. "Relax, dear. We're just enjoying the beauty of the place. No one suspects anything," Henri tried to reassure her, but he himself felt a knot in his stomach. Meanwhile, Jacques and Margaux were walking together, exchanging confidences and complicit glances. "Do you think they suspect something?" Jacques asked, trying to keep his voice casual. "I don't know, Jacques, but we need to be careful. Élise is my best friend, and I couldn't bear to lose her," Margaux replied, her face marked by concern. The tension was increasing by the moment, making the atmosphere almost unbearable. When the four of them gathered for dinner, the suspicious looks and forced smiles betrayed the complexity of the relationships. Jacques and Margaux, growing closer and closer, were beginning to notice the growing proximity between Élise and Henri. "You two seem very close lately," Jacques commented, trying to sound unconcerned as he observed Élise and Henri laughing together. "Oh, Jacques, don't be silly. We're all friends here," Élise responded, trying to hide the nervousness in her voice. The weekend trip, which should have been a moment of relaxation, turned into an emotional battlefield. The depth of the deception was beginning to emerge, and the masks of trust and loyalty were about to fall. However, the desire and passion that had been awakened were too strong to be ignored, and the four friends were entangled in a web of secrets that threatened to destroy everything they had built together. The atmosphere in Margaux and Henri's elegant apartment was tense that evening. The four figures around the table, Élise, Jacques, Margaux, and Henri, exchanged furtive glances while polite smiles masked the growing distrust. Jacques, a perceptive man by nature due to his profession as a lawyer, had not failed to notice the small slips of his wife and his friend. Margaux, a writer whose sensitivity to emotional nuances was acute, was also beginning to perceive the inconvenient closeness between her husband and her best friend. The night wore on, and as the sophisticated dishes were served, the conversation revolved around trivial matters. It was then that Jacques decided to initiate a topic he knew was delicate. "Élise, how is your new exhibition going?" he asked, with a gaze that seemed to pierce his wife's soul. "It's going well, thank you," Élise replied, with a tense smile. "Henri has been a great help, isn't that right, Henri?" Henri, who was pouring himself a glass of wine, almost dropped the bottle when he heard his name. "Ah, yes, of course. I'm happy to help. Élise's art is truly inspiring," he said, trying to sound casual. Margaux, observing the exchange, couldn't help but feel a growing discomfort. She decided to change the subject, hoping to dispel the tension. "Jacques, how are the preparations for that big case in court going?" "It seems very challenging," she asked, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Jacques was grateful for the change of subject, but the damage was already done. The seed of doubt had been planted, and as the night wore on, it became clear that the mutual suspicions were beginning to erode the bonds between the four friends. In the days that followed, Jacques decided to confront Élise about his suspicions. He found her in the studio, surrounded by her works of art. "Élise, we need to talk," he began, his voice grave. "Jacques, what's wrong?" she asked, feeling a chill down her spine. "I'm not blind. I know something is going on between you and Henri. I need to know the truth." Élise felt the ground slip from under her feet. She knew denying it would be futile.
"Jacques, I'm sorry.
"Henri and I have grown closer, but I still love you," she said, with tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, Margaux confronted Henri in his home. She found him in his office, where he was reviewing some documents. "Henri, we need to talk about you and Élise," she said, her voice firm. Henri sighed deeply, knowing that this moment would inevitably arrive. "Margaux, I never wanted this to happen, but I've fallen in love with Élise." Margaux felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. The betrayal of her husband and her best friend was a blow too deep to bear. The revelations shocked the four friends, forcing them to confront the consequences of their actions. What was once an intimate circle of friendship and love was now fragmented by distrust and pain. Jacques and Margaux, betrayed by those they trusted the most, had to make difficult decisions about their marriages. In the months that followed, the four friends tried to come to terms with the scars left by the devastating revelations. Jacques and Margaux decided to separate from their respective spouses, finding solace and understanding in each other. They moved to a new apartment in a quiet neighborhood of Paris, where they could start anew, far from the painful memories of the past. Élise and Henri, on the other hand, faced a more challenging path. The weight of guilt and betrayal made the reconstruction of their lives a constant struggle. Henri, determined to regain Margaux's trust, sought professional help and embarked on a long journey of self-reflection and personal growth. Élise, immersed in the pain of losing her husband and best friend, found in art a way to express and process her emotions. "I never imagined we'd reach this point," Henri said during one of his therapy sessions. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to find our way back to ourselves," the therapist responded, encouraging Henri to continue his inner work. Élise, in turn, transformed her studio into a sanctuary of renewal. Her paintings began to reflect the complexity of her emotions, gaining recognition and acclaim in the Parisian art scene. She found in her pain an inexhaustible source of inspiration, creating works that deeply touched those who experienced them. Art is a form of healing. It allows us to transform pain into beauty, Élise said in an interview as she presented her new collection. The lives of Jacques and Margaux, though marked by the trauma of betrayal, blossomed in unexpected ways. Together, they discovered a new depth of connection and understanding. Jacques, relieved of the constant pressure of his former job, decided to open a law practice specializing in helping victims of betrayal and divorce, using his own experience to offer support and guidance. Betrayal destroys, but it also gives us the opportunity to rebuild, Jacques told a support group he organized weekly. Inspired by Jacques' resilience, Margaux wrote a book about her experiences, offering an intimate and honest glimpse into betrayal and redemption. Her book became a bestseller, helping countless people find hope and strength amidst the pain. Pain can be transformative. It forces us to grow and find new ways of being, Margaux wrote in the introduction to her book. Over time, the four friends found ways to coexist in their new roles. The initial pain gave way to acceptance and, eventually, forgiveness. Jacques and Margaux continued their relationship, building a life based on honesty and mutual support. Élise and Henri, despite the difficulties, learned to find peace within themselves, dedicating themselves to their passions and making meaningful contributions to their communities. Paris, the city of love, witnessed the complex journey of betrayal and redemption of these four friends. In the end, each one found their own path, showing that even in the most painful circumstances, it is possible to find a new beginning and transform pain into a force for good.